A set of sway bar disconnects is there so that you can disconnect your front sway bar when you're off-road, giving you a lot more articulation and a lot more suspension travel, keeping more tires on the ground at one time, and of course giving you more traction to get over obstacles. Today we're going to talk through the installation of these sway bar disconnects, which I am going to give a 2 out of 3 wrenches. I know you're saying, these are just sway bar disconnects, how could it be difficult? Well, there is going to be some drilling into your frame required to get these installed, or at least to get the retention brackets installed for when you have these swung up out of the way and disconnected. Some of the other versions of these out on the market do not require drilling. Some of those are going to be less expensive. So again, do have to do a little bit of drilling to get this entire kit installed. I'm going to say a little under 2 hours to get this whole thing bolted up, but we will talk more about that installation in just a second. Now, there are sway bar disconnects on the market that range drastically in price. These are going to be some of the least expensive ones, and some of the most expensive ones are going to be double this cost or even more. Now, the risk with a set of sway bar disconnects that is a little bit less expensive is that they're not going to fit quite as tightly. They may rattle even right out of the box, and or they're going to wear out a little bit quicker, again causing some rattles and some noise when you're driving down the road. Now, that's something that is taken care of with some of the more expensive, more premium sway bar disconnects on the market, as well as some other things like grease fittings that will keep them working for a good long time. These ones are going to be a little bit more bare bones. They're not going to be greasable. They do fit a little bit looser right out of the box, so you might get a little bit of noise out of them, but they are going to be less expensive. So it comes down to your budget and what you like to spend money on your Jeep. These sway bar disconnects are going to be adjustable, so they're going to work for anything from 3.5 to 6 inches of lift. Now, the proper length for a sway bar disconnect is going to be setting your sway bar so that it is parallel to the ground when your Jeep is halfway through the suspension travel. Now, you can of course figure that out doing some measuring, jacking up the Jeep, doing some adjustments. What most of us will do is set the sway bar to about parallel, maybe a little bit higher than parallel, when the Jeep is sitting on the ground under its own weight. And again, this is going to be adjustable. It does have a couple of jam nuts on it so that you can set that adjustment for anywhere from 3.5 to 6 inches of lift. It's going to include, of course, those adjustable sway bar end links. On the bottom side, you are going to have a pin with a retention pin that will very easily allow you to pull the retention pin, slide the sway bar end link out of the way so that you have that full suspension travel. And this also does come with a couple of brackets so you can swing your sway bar end link up out of the way, clip it so it's not going to get bound up or bent in the suspension while you're on the trail. Now, this is an area that a lot of other companies will differ from these ones from Rough Country. Some of those other companies will allow you to bolt that bracket directly onto the front body bolt so you don't have to drill or do any other major modifications. This one from Rugged Ridge does not have that same style bracket, so you are going to have to mark and drill a couple of holes to get those installed in your Jeep. If you're not interested in drilling your frame, you can skip that step completely, but you're going to be using bungee cords or zip ties to hold your sway bars up out of the way while you're on the trail. If you do want to use the brackets that come in the kit, you are going to have to do some drilling. So because of that drilling, I am going to give this a 2 out of 3 wrenches for the installation difficulty, and probably closer to 2 hours, because anytime I'm drilling into my frame, I want to measure 2 and 3 times to make sure I'm getting it right. So the first step in the install is of course removing your factory sway bar end link, which is a pretty simple process, removing the bolts that are holding it in place, popping it off of both the frame side and the axle side and getting rid of it. And then you can bolt the new sway bar end link into place. The tie rod end side is going to go on the sway bar. The pin side, the side that actually disconnects, is going to go onto the axle, and you can get everything bolted up pretty easily. Once you have the length adjusted and the jam nut set, you're going to disconnect the sway bar just as you would when you're off-road, swing it up so that it's parallel to the frame, and that's when you're going to introduce that bracket into play and hold it onto the frame, marking where you're going to need to drill. After that, use a center punch and a drill to drill through the frame, and use the hardware included to get that bracket bolted up to the frame. Once you're finished with that, you can go ahead and swing the sway bars back down, get everything back connected up for the road, and you can be on your way. Again, probably a little closer to 2 hours. You're going to want to measure a couple times, make sure you get everything adjusted and set up properly before you drill those holes, but overall, a fairly easy install. So these sway bar disconnects are going to be around $65, and like I said before, that's going to be one of the less expensive sets on the market. There are sets that are out there that will just be the disconnect hardware that will allow you to use your factory end links or even an aftermarket end link, and those are going to be less expensive than these, but for a kit that includes the hardware, the end links, the retention brackets, everything, this is one of the less expensive sets. Like I said before, these fit a little bit looser right out of the box. You may get a little bit of rattle, a little bit of noise out of them. They may not wear as well over time, especially because they don't have grease fittings, but you are going to save a little bit of money with this set. So if you want something that's gonna last, that's gonna be nice and quiet, you have a little bit more money to spend, maybe you go with one of the other versions. If you want something that's gonna save you some money for those other mods, you're okay with something that doesn't have the grease fittings, might not hold up as well over time, this option is gonna be a good one. So that's my review of the Rough Country Front Quick Disconnects fitting your 2007 and up JK with 3.5 to 6 inches of lift that you can find right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.